Hey guys, Furum here, and today I'm going to be showing you the new Pagani Imola in multiplayer in Asphalt 9 at 5 stars. As I do not own this car, these races were given to me by RPM Pulsar, otherwise known as Frog, who you might remember from my ESL videos. He's maxed out the car as much as he can at this stage, except for the epics on acceleration, handling, and nitro. However, the top speed is completely maxed out that you can get at 5 stars. Now, I will be making another video about this car at some point, tested at Golden Max in the multiplayer season where that was available, but I wanted to do this one first to show it maybe a little bit of a lower star count in the regular multiplayer season where most people who did get this car would be able to drive it. Earlier I mentioned ESL. Well, this Sunday, May 16th, I will be co-hosting the Asphalt 9 finals for the ESL Mobile Open this season. It will be sometime in the afternoon. I'm still not entirely sure of the exact time of the Asphalt broadcast specifically, but I will let you know about that as soon as I can, and it should be broadcast on the ESL Mobile YouTube channel and on the ESL Mobile Twitch. I'll try to remember to link both of those in the description. In addition to that, I will be streaming on my own channel right here this Saturday at my usual time, 4:30 p.m. GMT or 11:30 a.m. Central Time, and I hope to see you at one of those. I know they're going to be a lot of fun. So we're coming up toward the end of the very first race here. The car coming up behind is actually the Pagani Huayra, the Imola's younger cousin, who probably did not do a 360 at the end. Maybe they had a bit more nitro, and that's probably how they were able to catch up at the end there. So the Imola at 5 stars is about the same rank as the Huayra at 6 stars. At 5 stars, the Imola tops out around 242 to 243 miles per hour, and the acceleration at 78 isn't the greatest, but it's certainly not too bad. And then the acceleration and nitro are both between 60 and 70, which again are decent, but not the most amazing. Now, although this car does not have the best acceleration, handling, or nitro, they are definitely up there enough, coupled with the second highest top speed in all of Class A, to make it definitely one of the best cars in Class A, if not the new king on, well, probably most tracks. The problem that I've heard from a lot of people is that it's not the most stable thing. Like, it's not as stable as the Huayra, which in some cases can lead to some issues in multiplayer that the Huayra does not have. Pulsar told me that the Imola can be somewhat unpredictable when going around turns and up ramps, and that it is really only worth going for if you can get it to at least 5 stars. Because at 5 stars, it isn't the best A-class car like compared to the maxed other ones, but it should still be good enough to do really well for you in multiplayer. And then only at max, only at 6 stars, is it truly the king of the class. Even then though, you'll likely have some of those stability problems I talked about earlier, and so it might take more tries to get a good lap time. And Pulsar tells me that the Valhalla is still a better choice for multiplayer, probably because it is just more reliable overall and not as prone to weird physics glitches and stuff as it seems the Imola is prone to. And you guys may remember a while back when this update first came out that I was seriously considering going for the Imola. But I decided not to do that for a couple of reasons. One, I already have the Valhalla, just like Pulsar was saying, at 4 stars even. So, I would not even be in a better situation unless I got the Imola to at least 4 stars, preferably 5, honestly, to be better than the Valhalla in any case, which was definitely not going to happen. I was just thinking of trying to unlock it, but even that would have cost me a few thousand minimum, and that was the time that the 599XX Evo came out, which I really wanted to go for instead, and that I felt like was a better investment in my case, just because I already had the Valhalla up so high, and I really needed a good Agile C-Class car for C-Class Elite events. So that is the story of why I decided not to go for the King of A-Class and decided to go for a C-Class car instead. It seems a bit weird when you say it like that. So here Pulsar comes in a very close second to Sacrolite in his CN and beats, though, a Huayra BC, and you will see a lot of, not really duels, but just close somewhat races between the Imola and the BC in this video, which is something that I think is pretty important to showcase. Now, of course, there is no telling the skill level of the other players in the Huayra, but some of the later races in this video, and I think the first one in this video as well, were really good battles between the two cars. And yes, so going over to the right here is faster if you're in a car that can keep most of its speed around those turns, because in terms of distance, that way is slightly shorter. The problem is most cars can't do what I just said in keeping most of their speed around there, so if you're in something like the, say, Corvette, or this car, or any other car like the Senna, for example, that has super good drifting and handling and speed-keeping capabilities around turns, turns, then that would be a good idea to go for, but don't attempt it in a Tri-Nemesis or something like that. So in this race, Pulsar is beating 5 cars that all have a higher rank than him. The one directly behind is a Ferrari Tributo, which is not a car that you see very often because it wasn't the easiest thing to get. And then there are 3 maxed out BCs as well as a maxed out Aperta. So yeah, some very, very good competition in this race, but Pulsar pulls through with the Imola to take the victory. Fun fact, when I was first watching this footage, I thought the tail end of that Tributo was an 812. So now we're into the second half of races in which Pulsar is facing a Vanda. Now, the Vanda is one of those cars which kind of went under the radar when it was first introduced, but since people have discovered that it is an extremely powerful multiplayer car. It has great acceleration and all of its stats except for the top speed are absolutely exceptional. The top speed isn't even bad, it's like 220 something, so it's not terrible again, it's just not the best in the class, and therefore Pulsar is catching up in the Imola, but the Vanda is sure giving him a run for his money with the really amazing drifting and just the ability to keep speed so well. It's a very agile car, and since it has such good nitro efficiency, and it's one of those cars with the perfect nitro goes faster, it can keep that quite well, and it does better than you might expect. I have 3 different videos up about the Vanda on my channel if you would like to check out its performance, one at Golden Max, one at 6 stars in a normal multiplayer season, and one at 4 stars with a multiplayer tune in that season a while back where it was rank based. I really hope Gameloft does that again because that would be kind of fun to have once in a while. I quite enjoyed that. Now toward the end of this race you could see where the Vanda does end up struggling. In any case where you have a long straight section it will just fall behind a bit, but even then the Imola, being like 20 miles per hour faster, only beat it by a single second, which is a pretty good showing for the Vanda, I believe. Now, here is the duel of the 2 purple Paganis, one Imola and one HUAYRA, with the HUAYRA being max but very close to the same rank as the Imola, and I just thought this was an extremely cool race, so I knew I had to have it in here, because it really shows you just how close these cars' performances are just in general, at 5 stars for this car versus 6 stars for the other one, and if they're both driven well, as you can see here, it's just super fun, and this is one of my favorite races in the video to watch, so I know you guys are gonna enjoy it too. I mentioned this in a previous video, but I do want to mention again, I will be uploading my 9th Asphalt music video and my 6th Asphalt 9 music video at 40,000 subscribers, which we are only, and this is crazy, 300 subscribers or less away from at the time of posting this. Thank you all so much for the huge support on the channel, and as well for my releases of my music on Spotify and on Apple Music, and for the 1,000 followers on Instagram. I'm trying to dip my hands into a lot of stuff, and it's just awesome to see the positive response. Thank you guys again so very much. And with that, the Imola has beat the HUAYRA by exactly 9/10 of a second. Now let's move on to a race on the Caribbean against an Aventador, against a 918 Spider, and a Bailey Blade GTR. A 4700 rank car. Being in Legend League, it's not surprising, but I'd be very interested to see how this car does against that one. As you guys may or may not know, the Bailey got a buff in its drifting, an update or 2 after it first came out. Unfortunately, this didn't really do much to help with the reputation of the car, because people had originally thought of it as being like, oh, this great Trion killer or something, because its stats kind of looked like that. But then its drifting was horrible, and so most people, I think, just didn't go for it because of that, or just because it was really difficult, one or the other. But from what I've seen, not a lot of people really tried to go for maxing it or getting it to a really high star count. This guy did though, and it paid off for him, because now the car is pretty good. You might be surprised to hear this, but after the buff and the drifting, it is now about as good as the Bugatti Chiron, and a bit better than the Trion Nemesis. It is crazy just how much the drifting ability of a car and the handling in general really affects its overall performance, and although its drifting was improved though, it still wasn't good enough to be able to make this turn onto the shorter way, although Pulsar takes it with the Imola very well, catching up pretty close to this Bailey at the end of the race, not being enough to get first place, but coming in quite a close second behind it. Only about half a second behind, as well as beating the other 2 A-Class cars in the race by about a full second. So now we're moving on to the final race in the video, which is against another maxed out HUAYRA BC, which we've seemed to have seen a lot of in this video, but actually the main competition was this VLF here. who was very close to me throughout a lot of the race, and while we see how that plays out, it's time for me to give my general review about the Imola. I have driven it at max myself. If you would like to check that out before I make a full multiplayer video about it at max, I do have a test drive up about that on my channel, as I do with many of the new cars that come out now in the game, and I will say that when I was driving it, I found it to be pretty enjoyable. I didn't really personally have a lot of these stability issues that people are having, but at max, of course, it's going to be better than at lower stars. I will say that this car probably was not worth going for unless you didn't have the Valhalla, or if you did have the Valhalla, at least getting this car to 5 stars, preferably 6 for it to be useful. If you could only get this car to 1 or 2 stars, probably wasn't worth going for if you have the Valhalla or any other high-end A-class car at a few stars at least. But if you did get it at low stars, just sit on it and maybe an opportunity will arise to start up even further, and maybe the physics issues will be fixed. Because if they are, this car has a really good chance to become an extremely great car in its class, with the second highest top speed in A-class, as well as the quite good acceleration handling in Nitro. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like the video if you have enjoyed, and consider subscribing for more Asphalt and other games content, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!